All right, guys, and without further ado, let's get into it, man. So, I like starting present day and then working backwards with the guests. I want to start here with you. You celebrated your 22nd birthday on Wednesday, September the 7th, on Daybreak. None of us had any clue, none of us, as in the production assistants, I think maybe Jensen and Nazi and them did. They had prior knowledge that it was your birthday, but it was your 22nd. You did it on air with us. First time I've seen anyone do that, where they celebrate their birthday like on air, or they even are at work on their birthday like that, and they're like happy to be there. So I thought that was pretty cool, man. But what was it like? First of all, just working with us on Daybreak, we loved having you on. Everyone thought you were a total star, to be honest with you. What was that experience like, celebrating your birthday, working with Nazi, and getting up at, 1, 2 in the morning? I mean, how early did you have to get up for all that?
I woke up around 2, and thank you so much. It was so much fun to be there and do Daybreak. I would say that even go back 2 weeks before my birthday, never would have had a thought that this was going to happen, that I'd be on Daybreak and celebrate in that way. But, in the end, it was so cool. And it's really been kind of an honor to get to work every single show now. I've been able to do the primes, do Daybreak, and get a feel for all those different shows. And I think that what you guys put together on Daybreak is really maybe the most impressive. Just, the fact that it's this 2-hour marathon and the show changes the most out of any show that you see from script-wise and planning. And so you guys all made me feel super welcome, and it was really fun. Stressful the first day, but after that I was like, okay, I'm getting the rhythm of this, and I'd love to do it again. So I had a ton of fun. Yeah, I was like, there's no better way to spend your 22nd, because, I mean, how many people can say they got to do that? So that was really fun.
What kind of gifts did you get? Did you get any sort of, I know we had cake way too early in the morning.
Right.
It was like 7:30 in the morning. Here comes like this big chocolate cake.
Yeah,
with, like,
shout out
cream
to my
cheese.
mom.
It was very good. It was just like sugar overload.
Oh, yeah.
What'd you do that day, though? What happened?
So, still not quite used to the Daybreak rhythm, so I was napping. I was spending my day like somebody maybe, 70, 80 years older than myself, just napping at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on my birthday. But no, it was great. I got to FaceTime my family. They had been in town over Labor Day weekend, so
Nice.
they dropped off some gifts for me, and so I got to FaceTime them and open those gifts, and I felt like a real adult, because the gifts, like the most exciting one was a breakfast sandwich machine thing. So,
Wait, what?
yeah, it's really cool. It's got like different trays, and you just crack an egg in there, and you put your English muffin or bagel on either side of it, and it heats it up in like 3
Oh,
or
it's
4
like
minutes.
McDonald's.
Yeah, basically, yeah, right there in my own kitchen. It's
That's
fancy
kinda
stuff.
sick.
So yeah, it was, those are the exciting gifts now that I'm old and 22. But yeah, it was fun. And other than that, just going to bed early to get up for Daybreak again. But the weather was nice. It wasn't too hot that day, so I had fun. Yeah, it was different, very different from 21, but I enjoyed it.
You had to cover. So I don't know if you remember this correctly. You had to cover the heat wave last week.
Yes.
So I think maybe Wednesday may have been the hottest day, to be honest with you. But I'm talking like 116, 17, like unbearable type of temperatures.
Yeah.
Not that that's any sort of different than stuff you normally report on, being a forecaster and whatnot. But was that kind of different, getting up that early and covering something like the heat wave and having to do stuff like don't bring your dogs out past 11 a.m.? I mean, have you had to do stuff like that in college? Is that your first time doing news coverage like that?
Absolutely, yeah. I did the forecast in Seattle for the past 2 years through UW and our Dogcast. And so I'd forecast once a week there, but we would never, ever see temperatures like this. And we did once. We got temperatures up, north of 100 degrees for a few days in a row, and that never happens there. And we did some coverage of that, but 107 was where we topped out. It really was, nowhere near what we saw in the Valley this past week. And that was different for me, even though I've been forecasting on the weekends all throughout the summer and through the, warmest part of the year here. It was different because I was telling people, the immediate things, not, hey, this is what you're looking at tomorrow. It was, I'm the first line for a lot of people waking up. This is what they're hearing about the forecast for the day. And so kind of had to take that seriously and jump in and, things I was seeing out there. That's why I brought up the dogs. I'd see people out walking their dogs on these days where it's 110, and I'm like, you just got to think about their paws and things like that, and just looking out for each other, because days like that, even if you're used to it, even if you've, grown up in Reading, 116 is crazy, especially as we get towards the end of summer. It's just wild stuff. So I'm very glad that we are about 30 degrees cooler than that today as we record this. But
yeah, beautiful day here in the Valley.
Yes.
Can't complain at all.
Yeah.
Well, so basically, this is my last thing about the heat wave. I just figure it's something that is so, it's your first week doing that shift.
Right.
Chief meteorologist, Mike Kruger, those 4 words always go together around here. But chief meteorologist is out. He's in Hawaii vacationing.
Right.
Not that you can't hit him up, but it's like, it's on vacation. I want to let him have his time. Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, I know you and Brian probably pulled 6 days apiece. That was a long week, man. Basically, what I'm trying to say is just kind of give you your due and give you your props, because not everyone could do that. Not everyone could come in and kind of just kill it right away. What was it like being on Billy and Patrick's radio show. I mean, they're like local legends here. I've had Billy on the podcast before. He was one of the first people that gave me a big break, I guess, as far as this goes. But what was that like being on their show every day after we do the cut-ins and stuff?
Oh my gosh, that was so much fun. It was very different. It's still kind of the same thing. I love to talk about the weather. I could do it for hours on end, and I try to fit that into a 2-3 minute window on air. But so getting to talk to them about it. And they got great personality and, the energy that at 750 that you can't find in most places. So that was super fun. And they gave me a walk-up song, which was awesome, just like you did here with Tame Impala, just kind of starting the show off.
So. What was their walk-up song?
So I got to pick there, and it was like kind of quick, rapid fire. And I was like, oh, I don't know. But I went with Enter Sandman. I felt like I had to go with something real heavy, hard hitting there. And that's what we went with. So that was kind of fun.
I figured you either say that or Welcome to the Jungle.
Oh,
I figured it'd be one of those two. Yeah. Or Thunderstruck.
Yes.
Everyone goes with the guitar and the that part. Everyone loves that for some reason.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this, dude. We talk about you being on a certain shift and being on a certain show, but in case people don't know for some reason about this, you work at KRCR. We're an ABC affiliate. We have the 5 to 7 morning show, like you said, the weekend, and we have the primes, of course. Why did you choose being from Seattle, Washington, which I've learned a lot about news in my less than a year of being there. And I know Seattle's a top 35, 40 market. People don't start in the big markets. That's something people don't really know about the business. They don't know there's contracts involved either. But why'd you choose KRCR in Redding, California, the northern Sacramento Valley, over any place up in Washington that you're used to?
So, I jumped into forecasting and jumped into weather really late in my college career. I have a degree in marketing, so I was not on this track. I'd been working in college athletics for most of my college career. In fact, all the way to the end, I was still an intern with UW marketing department, and that was my passion. But then I realized that, hey, I've always loved the weather, and the storytelling side of it is so much fun. I'd been a part of the club, and then midway through my senior year, I was like, okay, wait, I think I want to do this. So it was late, but I had already been kind of applying myself and learning the ropes of this career. And my mentor is the chief meteorologist at the ABC station in Seattle. And she's fantastic. She's a UW alum as well. Really took me under her wing, and through her classes, learned a lot about the industry, not just the forecasting side of things, but getting into news. And a lot of my classmates were in the meteorology program, but not as passionate about the broadcast side of it. They wanted to go into more of the operational side of things, like the National Weather Service. And so we didn't spend a ton of time talking about the news career because it's not for everybody. But I was super interested in it. I was like, this is the way that I can, tell the weather story in the most dynamic way. And so when we did talk about that, one of the things that came up a lot was relationships and the environment that you work in. And I've heard the horror stories. People go to these starting markets and they have really bad experiences because sometimes, you have higher ups that don't treat people well, and they want to kind of break you down and keep you in smaller markets. And so hearing that was kind of something that I was on the lookout for when I started applying for jobs, and I wasn't sure where I wanted to go. I'll say my first thought, I wanted to stay fairly close to home. I wanted to stay out west. Severe weather is interesting to me, but I'm a little bit afraid of it. Just growing up on the West Coast, tornadoes and things like that, not my ballgame. I don't know anything about that. So
this is the West Coast.
Yeah, I want to leave that to the pros, and I'd like to experience it from afar and kind of track that sort of thing. I'm intrigued by hurricanes, tornadoes, all that, but not a storm chaser type of guy. That's a little too ballsy for me. So I wanted to stay out west, and I was looking at Missoula, Montana was kind of the first place that I looked, and set up an interview with them, but then I was contacted by a Sinclair recruiter because of my connection with the chief meteorologist at Como. And he was like, hey, there's this job in Redding. And so I talked to the folks there. I set up an interview with Carrie, our news director, and I could just feel right away. This was my first interview that I actually did. I could just tell that the culture was really good here. And that, they hired good people, and everybody that I talked to across the board, kind of through my interview process, I got the feeling that this was a really good environment. And that they were passionate about teaching you to do well here and then go on to succeed elsewhere eventually, if you do choose to move on. And recognizing, hey, this is, a place where people can start their career and you can build the skills and go on to wherever that next stop may be. And so I just felt that I wasn't going to necessarily find that good of a culture anywhere else if I passed up on this opportunity here. And so I can say that, 3 months into my career here, that's been the case. I really enjoy everybody that I work with, and I think everybody has the same kind of goal is, hey, I'm going to do this well, I'm going to take this seriously, and I'm going to put my heart into this community while I'm here. And hey, maybe I've got aspirations to go somewhere else eventually, but I'm, putting it all on the line right now. And we get to cover so many interesting stories. It's such a diverse area in terms of the landscape and the environment and the culture here, and it spreads across such a big geographic area. So it really is a great place to start. I'm super excited to be here, and it was kind of a happy accident that I ended up, finding out about KRCR.
You worked at Como in Seattle. I'm familiar with that. Were you a PA? Were you on air? What did you do there?
Sorry, so I didn't work at Como. So she was my mentor. She taught a class at the UW. So I never actually, this was kind of in the middle of COVID, so I never got a chance to go to the studio there. They often had interns, but everything was just kind of shut down. And so it was this weird in-between world, and I always wanted to go and maybe, shadow intern at Como. It didn't happen, but so lucky that I was able to, kind of learn from her in a classroom setting and then apply it out here.
That's awesome, man. See, have you been media trained at all? Have you taken classes on how to, not that I like to consider myself part of the media, I like to just have conversations, but and coming into a job in the media, do you get that kind of training in college and whatnot? Do they kind of take you through hey, people are going to maybe try and set you up, or they're going to try and you got to be able to dodge it at certain times. Did you learn that in school?
I haven't, no. It kind of was, you learn as you go type of thing. I did a lot of promo videos and things like that for our marketing department. I was, the president of our student section at UW, so kind of outward-facing, athletic marketing side of things. I learned a lot that people on Twitter are ruthless, brutal, and so learning how to just tune that stuff out and take legitimate criticism to heart. Hey, okay, let me do this differently. But yeah, kind of taking the brunt of the negative comments, learning how to deal with that, and then how you want to present yourself. And hey, this is in the scope of my job. I want to do this professionally. I want to do this well. So no formal training. It's just kind of learning as you go. One of those things where it's okay, people are going to teach me through the things that they say, and you just got to roll with it. And that's kind of been the biggest lesson is the negative voices are always the loudest, and you have to be able to tune those out unless they're saying something legitimate. In that case, hey, maybe you can learn from that and go from there.
What's the biggest criticism or something that it tore you down at first, and then once you realized maybe how truthful it was, it helped you out?
The big one that I noticed was kind of the way that I, especially here, was the way that I kind of navigate on air and standing in front of the screen and getting off screen sometimes, just getting out of the way of the graphics so everybody can see something. Maybe I'm blocking a number, just getting out of the picture sometimes is fine because I can talk about these things. I don't have to point at it necessarily. People are capable of reading on their own, and so that's been one where I was okay, hey, they have a point. Let's do this. And I think haven't heard anything negative since then. Fingers crossed that hopefully I'm doing that in a way that's a little bit more pleasant for people to watch. And I try to keep it fun through the vocal side of things. But hey, I don't have to be in front of the camera all the time with my big head blocking the numbers.
I want to ask you about this, man. What's the best thing about growing up in Seattle, Washington? I've never been there myself.
Okay.
Pacific Northwest, Space Needle, the Seahawks. I mean, that's what I think of. The rain,
Right.
Of course, Starbucks, Amazon, Microsoft. But what's something that, being a native there, that you would recommend or something that was your favorite thing about growing up in a big city like that?
So I grew up in a suburb of Seattle, so kind of just say Seattle, it's funny, Washington's a funny place where that's kind of the only thing people know, and when you say Washington, half the time people are DC. So growing up in and around Seattle, I just love the nature, and I think that's another thing that's amazing here, is that you can get out and explore. I grew up in kind of a rural area, and I just go for runs on these roads just lined by pine trees, and the weather up there is fantastic. You have to get used to it. It's one of those things that a lot of people aren't used to. If you didn't grow up there, it can be brutal. We've got 8 months of we call it the long gray, basically, because it's not rainy forever. It's just kind of drizzly, dark, gloomy for months on end. Never thought I'd miss it, but I was used to it. We'd have students come up for college from California. They'd have to get light therapy to avoid seasonal affective disorder up there. It's kind of wild that this is a thing. But I love the weather there because we just get a little bit of everything. In the summer, it's fantastic. We're topping out around 85. And then we've got the chance of snow in the winter. And as a weather nerd, I love the snow. I love those just tracking big storms. And so I feel like we have a nice mellow version of every kind of weather and just so many opportunities to get out and explore. But I'm gonna flip the question. You're a Reading native, correct?
I am.
Okay, so tell me something maybe that I don't know. What's the best thing about growing up in Reading?
So the best, I guess from a weather standpoint, the funniest thing about growing up here is that it never snows.
Okay.
Much like how in LA and San Diego and stuff, it never rains. It never snows here.
Okay.
In the valley. So, everything usually kind of stays out, in the three mountain ranges.
Right.
So I want to say the last time we had a big snowstorm was Snowmageddon, is what people call
Okay,
it. I
yeah,
don't know
yeah.
if you've heard of this. This was Valentine's Day, 2019,
Okay.
and it dropped like, I'm sure Kruger would know, maybe like 6 to 7 inches of snow
Dang.
overnight, which we haven't seen in like 6-7 years at that point.
Yeah.
People were snowed in the next day at work. People don't know how to put chains on their cars
Right.
here. You know, I mean, you see kind of the heat and everything like that. It doesn't rain too often here either. There's over
Yeah.
300 sunny days. It's almost like, you know, Arizona, where it's
Right.
like the desert, where it's always sunny. So I guess the big thing about growing up here is that the weather is a great thing to get into for a starters market here and whatnot. But the big thing, I guess, to bring it to news is just the national fire stories. And
Right.
it's unfortunate and it is sad, but it is national, and it always is. And it's always a big deal, and it's always something that is going to need coverage. And that's one thing that, you know, for me especially, you know, growing up here, and I was here during the car fire and stuff, made me want to work at KRCR specifically
Yeah.
as far as getting my start, because it's like I know that we're going to have direct coverage of these stories that go national. You have a chance to get SOTs and packages and VO on, you know, World News Now, GMA, 2020, you know, shows like that.
Yeah.
Even, you know, CBS and NBC shows as well. But I digress. Basically, the best thing about living here, man, is that it's very community oriented. That's something I didn't realize till I was an adult. It's something I didn't realize till the car fire. I was 19 when that happened. And I always thought growing up, you know, I got bullied in school and stuff, so I was like, oh, you know, basically like, oh, you fuck Anderson already, you know. It's just one of those things where, yeah, as a kid, it's like, you know, you always think it's your fault, you know what I
Right.
mean? When it's like, people are just jerks, and you're going to be okay, you're going to be fine. And I appreciate this place because it made me who I am, you know what I mean? It's like everything that I love, it's, you know, because of Reading. So
That's awesome.
I guess that's my my pitch to you on.
Cool.
on
Yeah,
Reading.
no,
If
I'm
I was
seeing a
news
little glimpse
director.
of that. Yeah, the community side of things, I'm seeing it, you know, in the first
Yeah.
few months here. So that's great.
I mean, like the Asphalt Cowboys barbecue.
Oh, yeah.
People love going out for that. The
Right.
pancake breakfast. I think you just may have missed that.
Ah,
in May.
well, I'll be here. I'll be here next May.
I'll
so
say
I'll look
next
forward
May.
to it. Put it on
And
my calendar.
I think it's always Memorial Day or like a weekend
Okay.
before. And they do it on the new Market Street now. They
Nice.
literally serve like 15,000 pancakes. Like it's like and
Dang.
sausage patties and like cups of OJ. Like
Oh,
it's
man.
nuts, dude.
That's
it's nuts.
great.
And it's like $5 a plate.
Where else can you
Um,
find something like that? That's really cool.
I want to ask you about this. What's one thing you recommend to people when they're visiting Seattle to do?
Ooh, going to Seattle. You know, I'm gonna plug my college campus. I think it's one of the most beautiful campuses in the world. If you're there in late March, the cherry blossoms are truly world famous. We become, for about 1 or 2 weeks in the spring, one of the most photographed places in the world because the cherry blossoms, they line the quad there. There's about maybe 15, 20 of them, and they just go in this brilliant, like pale pink. So beautiful. You can't walk through there to get to class. It's a nightmare with all the tourists, but it's so beautiful. The campus has a ton of really cool history. It was kind of built around the Alaska Yukon Pacific exhibition, which was kind of a precursor to the World's Fair way back in 1909. So many historic, beautiful buildings there, and it's kind of cool. It's not one of those typical touristy places in Seattle. All those things are really fun. I've done them even being from there. You know, the Great Wheel, going to the waterfront, the Gum Wall, going to the big stadiums there. All
Gum
super
Wall.
cool. Yeah,
I
the
forgot
Gum
about
Wall.
the Gum Wall.
The Gum Wall is a bizarre thing, and the fact that
I
that
forgot
came back,
about
that came back after COVID is a little bit like, wait a minute, what are we doing here? But it's kind of cool to see. I wouldn't make a day around it, but it's kind of funny.
The Gum Wall. I totally forgot about that because I know, you know, just watching Seahawks games when they
Right.
were always in the big games over the
Yeah.
years against the Packers and stuff and the Patriots, unfortunately.
Yep,
Sorry.
right.
But they'd always show Gum Wall. At that time, it was it CenturyLink Field or was
Yep.
it?
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
wasn't okay. Now it's Lumen Field.
Lumen, yep.
But yeah, they'd always show this stuff. I'll tell you this much, and I'm glad that we're doing this week, just because you know you were on Daybreak and your birthday,
Yeah.
and the Seahawks. We'll get to that in a little bit, but I'm watching the game Monday night. And the Great Wheel, I guess is what you guys
Yeah.
call it. I just call it the Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big ass Ferris wheel,
Yeah.
and it's right over Elliott Bay. Is that what
Yep,
you guys
yeah,
call
you got that right.
the
You
ocean?
know your
Okay.
local geography pretty
Yeah.
well. You're basically a local at this
I
point.
try, man. I try. I try to be prepared. You know.
Nice.
And looks beautiful. And I looked it up, and much like San Francisco, where the best time to go is probably September, October. Correct me if I'm wrong. They say the best time to go to Seattle is September, October because not a lot of fog, still kind of summer, but there's not all the tourists, but it's not raining yet.
Right.
What's the best time to go to Seattle if I'm going to go there?
I would say October. Maybe you're pushing it a little bit. I hate to dog on the tourism marketing that they're putting out there. By October we're getting into fall, but September truly one of the best months. I would say that if
Okay.
you take summer, obviously July and August are a great time to visit, but yeah, it's probably busier then. June, though, we have a thing. We just call it the June gloom. It's typically way worse weather than May, and honestly worse than September. And so for me, school started at the end of September at UW, which was so nice, and I just loved having September to go and explore. And so if you have a chance to take a weekend in September to get out there, I know that in the news world, we're not in sweeps during September, so it's a time you can go and get out there. It's a great time to visit. And really any time of the year, there's fun things to do. Maybe if you're not a fan of the big gray, the long gray, I'd avoid those winter months. But yeah, definitely September. October, maybe you're pushing it, but hey, you could get some of that classic rain if you're up there. So could be charming in a way.
Space Needle or CN Tower?
You know, it's the Space Needle for me, you know. I mean,
I'm
a little
else.
biased, right? I might be a tiny bit, but no, it's super cool. I've actually never been to the top. I've never been to the top of the Space Needle.
Never been to the top?
No, but it's beautiful. They do some really cool stuff up there. I know that one of my mentor's colleagues got to help go on the roof of it and help repaint it. So they were celebrating the 60th anniversary of the Space Needle this year, and they painted it bright orange, which was the color they chose in 1962. Sounds like a 60s design choice to me, just painting the roof of this weird, crazy tower bright orange, and it looks a little tacky, but I like it. I'm a fan of orange. And so she got to go up there and like harness in and paint the top of the Space Needle. They've got like glass floor now, so people that are afraid of heights wouldn't maybe recommend that visit, but it's a super cool landmark, and I'm sure the CN Tower is fantastic. There's a Drake album that's, you know, featuring that, so that's a point to them. I'll give them that. But you know, Space Needle, I'm a homer pick. I'm gonna lock in.
I had to go to Chico today for a couple errands, and I was just listening to Views, and that's kind of what made me think of it. I'm like, Space Needle. And growing up, I didn't know the difference.
Okay,
you know, you just see a big skyline as a kid. They look kind of similar.
Right,
they've got to be the same thing.
Yeah.
Come to find out that one's exponentially taller than the other, I guess.
Okay.
But 1962 for the World's Fair in Seattle, they opened up the Space Needle and whatnot, and it's. I was surprised it's so young, to be honest with you, compared to something like, you know, I guess the biggest landmark around here would be the Golden Gate Bridge, right? That or Alcatraz. Alcatraz is way older, but Golden Gate's been open since like 1937.
Okay,
It's very old.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, 1962 for the Space Needle.
Right.
Obviously, you weren't around for the World's Fair or anything like that, of course, but
just missed it by a couple years.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a good time.
Oh yeah.
Sounds like it was a great time. So, keeping on the University of Washington thing, you graduated there this year.
Yep.
This last year, right?
Yep, just in June. Yep.
So, and we kind of talked about meteorology and what's going on with that, and we can expound on that here in a second. But why stay local at University of Washington? I mean, did you get an offer right there, or did you want to just stay home? I mean, why go with the Huskies, right? It's the Huskies?
Yep, go Dogs. So it was a tough decision for me, and I was a tour guide at UW, so I've done this spiel a million times. And so I was down to UW and Cornell up in upstate New York, and it was a tough decision. You know, the Ivy League name is like, dang, you know, can you step away from that? But growing up in Seattle, I'm a third generation Husky, so you know, it was in my blood. I grew up rooting for this team, and I knew that I wanted to go into business, at least at that point. And obviously things have changed. And at Cornell, the program that I would have been in is Industrial Labor Relations, and they call it ILR, and they also said it's I Love Reading, which was like, that's a little daunting as a college program. I'm not that into reading textbooks, but I wasn't sure, but I went to kind of like a preview event for admitted students for both schools. And the feeling that I got at UW, it was very similar to KRCR. Just the feeling of the people and the culture there was like, okay, this is what fits me better. Like at UW, I could tell people were passionate and, you know, wanted to apply themselves and kind of embrace the Seattle environment. And I don't mean to dog on Cornell, but it just felt like a lot of people were like kind of coasting on legacy. A lot of people were like, oh, my parents went to Harvard, Yale, you know, Cornell, whatever. And it didn't feel like they were like, hey, I'm passionate about what I want to do. And so getting that feeling right away, and that really carried through 4 years. I met so many people in crazy fields of study, things that I didn't even know were majors, and just that they were like, hey, this is what I'm passionate about. This is my research project. I'm like, this is so cool. And, you know, we have great access to really cool opportunities in work and in exploration in the Seattle community. There's big companies there. You know, we're kind of right there on the coast, so environmentally there's a lot going on. And so people really can apply themselves in that big city environment, and it was so cool to see what my friends are all up to. And so I really wasn't sure about it at first. I was like, dang, I'm locking in, I'm saying no to this, but no regrets at all in the end. It was super, super cool to stay home. Be close to my family was really nice. That in-state tuition was nice as well. Still got a really, really good quality education out of it, so I cannot complain.
How far is Seattle from here? It's like 700 miles, right?
About 550.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
So Portland and Seattle really aren't far apart.
No, you can get from Seattle to Portland about 3 hours, two to 3 hours, depending on the traffic. There's some nasty traffic spots on the way there, like the base south of Seattle. But other than that, yeah, it's a pretty smooth drive. You can get down there. So
okay,
yeah,
that's good to know. That's
yeah,
good, 'cause
yeah.
I've never
You
ever
can
done
make
the
a full road
drive.
trip. Yeah, you can get up to Portland and Seattle pretty easily. You can get a day out of it.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I have one more thing before we take our first break.
Oh yeah.
I want to ask you about this, man. I want to ask you because this guy is easily, and I mean easily, and I don't know if you know this, but he's the most interesting guy in the entire station.
Okay.
Chief Meteorologist Mike Kruger.
Mike is great.
I can't figure him out. He doesn't want to be figured out. He's nice, but he's a curmudgeon. But then he's the nicest curmudgeon. That's what we call him on Daybreak. He loves calling him that. But obviously he's someone that I can already tell has helped you out a lot. You came in right away, and thank God you knew what to do for the weather records. For people that don't know, me personally, I get in at 4 a.m. We sit down, do the headlines, do forecasts for we call it the J bar on the TV. And, then we meet at 4:20 to, go over what we're going to do for the show. And then at 4:30, it's cut-in time. So you go and we record literally like 20 minutes worth of weather stuff.
Right.
And you knew exactly what to do. I feel bad for Brian because the first day he came in, I think we did one of them before the show started and then had to do everything before the GMA cut in. Because, you got to serve Fox and ABC in the morning. So it's like, it was just a lot going on. But how much circling back around to Mike, how much has he helped you already in your short amount of time and kind of been, I guess, maybe a mentor to you at the station?
A ton, yeah. I mean, my first 2 days were Daybreak, training with Mike, just getting a feel for, hey, this is how news works. Because, again, I've never been in a newsroom before I started at KRCR. And so I did 2 days of training with him on the morning side, took 1 day off to rest, did night side with Brian, and then I was, jumping in that weekend. And Mike, came in on Saturday to come make sure that everything went well for me.
Nice.
Yeah, so just getting a feel for not only how things are done here, but also the local weather has been so great. And so he's been really helpful, taking me under his wing and like, hey, I can ask him questions, even on the weekends. Before this big heat wave, we were seeing the numbers jumping up early. We were seeing 113, 115 over the weekend, and that never materialized. I was seeing that popping up, and I was like, I don't want to lock into it early. So I texted Mike. I was like, hey, I'm building my forecast for the show. I'm seeing 113 next Sunday. Should I lock in? It's pretty far. And he texted me back right away. He's like, hey, let me look at a couple things. He got back to me. He's like, I'm thinking 106 if you average it all out. And in the end, this is a week out at that point. He was spot on. It was 106 that day. And so it was super cool to have him as a weather resource because this is a new area to me. And there's so many interesting microclimates around here. You've got the valley. You have the mountain locations where in the summer it gets down to the 30s, which is just mind-boggling to me. Growing up in the Pacific Northwest where the temperature range is about 10, 15 degrees in the day. It's kind of like the Bay Area. You just have that marine influence.
I'll say we got no ocean breeze.
No,
man. Those
none of
mountains
that.
are tall.
Yes,
we get no ocean breeze.
Keep it out there towards Eureka. But yeah, he's been super great and just getting a feel for. And yeah, I mean, the reason I knew those weather records is because I was able to shadow him on the Friday before I came into Daybreak, and he walked me through everything. I took some notes, and I was like, okay, I feel like I know what I'm doing. Gonna have to apply it, and we'll see. There was a little rocky. Like, okay, I've seen somebody that knows what they're doing do it. Does that translate for me? But it really worked out, and I can't thank him enough for letting me just kind of learn from him, not only at the beginning there, but when I was jumping into Daybreak. So it's been great.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. He's easily the most interesting guy because I've literally grown up watching guys like him and Mangus, and now seeing, Shane and Dave and them put together the Mike on the North States News,
Right.
Over 60 years of experience. That's something you could trust. Seeing that, it's like, that's crazy,
Yeah.
man. Because I remember being a little kid and fire coverage or snow or it doesn't, whatever it was, the recession, whatever it was. I remember I've always been an NBA Finals fan. That's an ABC thing,
Yeah.
It has been for like 20 years. So it's always the news, and then it goes right into finals coverage or Monday Night Football. So that's cool, man. That's cool that he came right away and Mike Kruger just took it under his wing. He's just something about him, man. He's so interesting. There's something I feel like I gotta get to the bottom of with him, and I just haven't figured it out. Maybe I never will. When we come back, let's talk about some sports. We'll talk about kind of your thoughts on Seattle and Vegas, maybe getting some NBA teams.
Oh, yeah.
And I have a nice little question for you. Actually,
Okay.
I haven't told you about yet.
All right.
I got something I just
Let's
thought
do
of
it.
when we come back. All right, guys, and we are back. So I want to put you on the spot.
All right.
Nothing crazy, but I gotta ask, and I want the honest answer.
Okay.
Nazi, Mangus, Dylan Brown, or Sade? You only get one.
I only get one. I'm going to say Sade because we just built the chemistry
Wow.
over the weekend. Our weekend team, very fun. And it's not to dog on anybody. I've had such a great experience working with everyone, really. And they've been very patient with me, especially Nazia, Mike, and Dylan, since they, I haven't worked with them as much, and I was just kind of thrown into their shows. But they really took me in and like, hey, we're going to make it work. And so they gave me good transitions, and they made me feel welcome, which was super cool because you can get that kind of imposter syndrome. Like, dang, I'm on primes. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm brand new.
Right.
But it really helps to have somebody that knows what they're doing, make you feel like, hey, you're good. Let's do this thing. We're going to make it happen. But yeah, I've got to go with Sade because we've just kind of built this very fun, relaxed environment. She puts up with my puns and ridiculousness on the weekends, and she's done it more than anybody else to this point. I like to post this stuff on TikTok, just hoping it'll go viral, but it's just kind of our back and forth at the end. We get a goofy kicker, and we've had stories about seals breaking into people's houses.
I'm sure a bear's eating a Pop-Tart.
Yeah, we had a bear eating a birthday cake the other day. Yeah, we did a thing on Pop-Tarts. You got it all figured out.
Bears just keep popping up in people's houses.
Oh my gosh.
We keep popping up in their environment is the problem. But they keep coming into our houses and like eating our stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't know they like Pop-Tarts.
Who doesn't like a Pop-Tart?
That's true. Yeah. So Sade Brown, man.
Yeah, we
Not that I feel like I sound surprised. I mean, Sade is great. She's more so more quiet than anything.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you get to know her, kind of knock down that wall, like you said. Kind of like with Kruger.
Yeah.
He's one of those people that once you get past that first layer, you can kind of find out who they are. Yeah. So that's interesting, man. It's interesting. I'm not going to dare ask you who your least favorite is. We can just move on.
I don't have a least favorite.
Let's talk about this, man.
All right.
The Seahawks beat the Broncos on Monday Night Football. I'm just gonna come out and ask: do Seahawks fans dislike Russell Wilson?
I'm not gonna speak for everybody, but I'll say I don't like him anymore, and that's a little spicy. But I
spicy.
I feel like he forced himself out, and I'm not an expert on the situation, but it feels like over the course of several years he was always he has a crazy big contract, and that's the same case now in Denver. But he was making, I think, a third of our salary cap in his last couple of years at Seattle. And then he'd constantly complain, hey, you guys aren't building a team around me. What are we supposed to do? There's no money out there when you are commanding a third of the salary as one player on a 53-man roster. And I think it just rubbed me the wrong way that, outwardly and outside of the football world, he acts as, maybe he's not an act. Maybe he genuinely is. He does a lot of really great things for the community. He went to the Seattle Children's Hospital every week. He is a great guy, but I think that you look at true champions, and I am not a Tom Brady fan at all. I don't know about you. What's your thoughts on Tom Brady?
I mean, I think he's the greatest quarterback ever. I come on this podcast and I call him his full birth name.
Nice.
Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. I mean, I do it. I really do. So I can't sit here and lie to you, man. I like Brady, but I like Buccaneer Brady.
Okay, yeah.
If he was still in New England winning Super Bowls, I probably would have a different tune.
Yeah. Nobody likes Patriots.
Yeah, it is nice to see him kind of take the mask off, and he's not this perfect quarterback anymore, and he's just a normal human being who makes mistakes. But anyway, you're saying.
Yeah, I was saying, even if you're not a fan of it. No, I'm not a fan of it. I think it goes back to that Patriots area. Obviously, that Super Bowl 49
I was saying, is it that Super Bowl?
It's a little rough, as a Seattle fan. But you look at him and you say, hey, this is a guy that, okay, maybe there's some cheating in there. I don't know. I'm not going to speak on that right now. But yeah, probably a little bit. People do it. Yeah, exactly. People do it across the board. It's just most people are not getting caught. He got caught a couple times.
Right.
But no, he's won a ton of Super Bowls because he's willing to be a team player. He's taken pay cuts before to build great rosters around him. And so it's like, if you really cared about Seattle and winning championships here, you would have done that. And then, obviously, I'm sure we've all heard it too many times, the Broncos country, let's ride thing. It's just a little... You have it on the keypad. It's amazing.
I know YouTube can't hear it, but on audio...
With a tap of a button,
we
had
do
it
have
ready. That's amazing.
Broncos country, let's ride.
Broncos country.
We do football pods every Wednesday.
Nice.
By the way, now that I know you're such a football fanatic, I will definitely invite you on for an episode
thank you. I'd love to do it.
for some football.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I love having that available. I think I have a Joker laugh somewhere. Is this the?
Nice.
That's kind of annoying. I'll fix that one eventually. I think I have. What's this one? That's Jimmy Haslam talking about Deshaun Watson. So whenever someone messes up, or whenever I think someone's being just a chicken head, it's just this old man talking about giving someone a second chance. Did you see the ESPN piece about Russell Wilson that came out, I want to say last Thursday?
I did not. Sorry,
Total hit piece.
Oh, really?
Dude,
Dang.
look, Guy T is shit like this. It's stuff like this. They're talking about how Pete Carroll was the one that kind of deaded the whole Russell going to the Browns for the number one overall pick in 2018. Everyone in the organization was behind it. Then Pete Carroll said no.
Oh.
They were talking about how Russell was complaining to Roger Goodell at the Super Bowl, the Chiefs Buccaneer one, when he won Walter Payton Man of the Year. And he was saying, I don't have an offensive line. That's when we started hearing whispers. I thought he got traded, or he would get traded 2 off seasons ago, the 2021 offseason. Because we heard Saints, we heard Raiders, we heard Broncos, and we heard someone else. I forget at this point. But I was like, oh, there's no way he doesn't get traded. Obviously, you wait another year, and he's on the Broncos now. I'll go as far as to say I think Russ deserves it. The boos and the jeers. And, I mean, you're not wrong at all. He totally forced his hand to get out of Seattle. It reminds me of Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
The city loves you. Kevin Durant didn't win a title there, but you won a title there. Yes, it is his fault for losing that second Super Bowl, and I mean, it just is what it is at this point. It's also a terrible Pete Carroll call. You proved your head coach right by, being better than Matt Flynn was in 2012. You win a Super Bowl your second year in the league. I mean, he had like you said, he's a great guy. He was in the MVP conversation, 2 or 3 of the last few years before 2021. And yeah, dude, I don't know. It's really a fall from grace because now it's like we hear this, and it's literally he's a cornball. Like even a Seahawks fan like you is like, that dude's corny, man.
Yeah. And it was charming for a while, but now it's like, oh, come on, it's just tacky.
It's an act, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of phony, man.
Yeah. And I
don't like calling another man phony because that's just one of those like just straight insults, but it's phony.
Yeah.
It's weird, man.
Yeah. And I think you as a Chargers fan, you also with me a little bit, right? In terms of Broncos quarterback, I'm not gonna like that guy out of the gates, right?
Not only that, man. I'll go a step further. I'm not a Phillip Rivers fan.
Oh, okay. Damn.
At all.
Really?
At all. There's been way too many playoff games, way too many important weeks, 15, 16, 14 games, where he's dropping back in the pocket, and he goes to throw, and he doesn't get it out in time. Or goes to the other team. Or he's throwing into a double team. Or he's throwing and the ball's hitting his forearm, and now it's on the ground, and a Chargers offensive guy can't recover. There's been way too many games like that, and I'm like, I'm over this guy.
Right.
So the fact that we have Justin Herbert, it's like literally, it's 10 from heaven.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's I love it. But Seahawks fans don't like Russell Wilson. That's interesting. So I'm gonna get your thoughts on this, then we can move on. What were your thoughts on the 17-16 win? I mean, the Broncos, if we're gonna be honest, probably should have won the game. McManus, missed that kick. Javonte and Melvin Gordon each had a fumble at the goal line.
Right.
But that was kind of the Seahawks Super Bowl, in my opinion. So you guys all recognize that.
Yep.
You guys aren't in La La Land thinking you might go 9-8.
No,
the division.
No.
Okay.
I mean, the NFC West, hey, we're alone on top of it right now. I'm just going to
gonna
say that while I can. Hey, look at that. Alone on top of the division.
Dude, the FanDuel odds for that, the only one in the team.
Oh, my gosh.
I think it was like 375 to 1. You bet $1, you would have won 375 last week.
Dang, I should have been a homer and put a little money on that.
That is nuts that the Cardinals, Rams, and Niners all lost.
Crazy stuff.
That's nuts.
Yeah. Sorry, what were we saying? Oh, yeah.
Just talking about the Seahawks beating the Broncos 17-16.
Right, yeah. And I think you're right. It was the Super Bowl this year because it was kind of this prove-it moment for the Seahawks because I think you probably have 2 camps. There's probably people in that locker room that agreed with Russell and were on his side because he'd been with the Seahawks for 10 years.
Guys like DK.
Right, yeah. People that worked with him closely and that he, like DK, receivers, and people kind of close to him in the offense. But I'm sure there's a lot of people also that kind of are bitter about his decision to force his way out. And like you said, put out a list of, hey, I don't want to leave Seattle, but here's the teams I want to go to instead. That sort of thing. I think there's probably people on that team that took that personally. And so I think they came out there with a reason to win. And yeah, it's a big deal when you're a team that's expected to win 3 games. And I will say as a homer, I don't think we're doing winning more than 6 games this year. They're not a great team.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say 3. I'm like, you guys are going to win 3.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, hey, we got 1 already, and, we'll see. But, yeah, I think that they wanted this game more. And obviously Russell is probably an emotional, weird thing. And, he's probably some head games to it. And for the Broncos, I think they're going to be a good team this year. But for us, yeah, this one was a big deal. And I think Geno himself especially had something to prove on Monday night. Was like, hey,
he looked good.
Yeah, and I don't know if the last time somebody said that about him, in the NFL, but he was on and he had his moment, and I hope there's more for him. I don't necessarily expect it, but I think it was kind of his chance to say, hey, I'm not a backup, and now that Russell's gone, this is my team, and I'm going to claim it, and I'm going to put it on the stat sheet right here tonight. So I loved seeing it, and I loved his little quote there at the end. He's like, "They wrote me off, but I ain't right back." Did you see that?
No.
No, that was his
Isn't
little
that from like an
post-it.
Eminem song or something?
Might be,
though?
yeah.
Or I think it's a Drake song.
Okay.
Actually. I think it's a Drake song.
Yeah, it definitely sounds familiar. But it was a nice little mic drop there at the end of the little 1-point win that we eked out.
Look, I'm glad you guys won. I wish I would have bet money on it so I could
Yeah.
win money and be satisfied, but I'm glad you guys won. I mean,
Thanks.
anytime I can see the Broncos lose, and especially Russell Wilson, who, look, I'm glad the Seahawks fans are admitting it, and it passes the eye test. He hasn't been good since probably the first half of 2020.
Yeah.
He looked fantastic, but then he started throwing across his body, trying to throw it over two guys in the end zone, getting picked off. And it just all sorts of stuff, forcing the football, let Russ cook.
Right.
And then Russ started cooking and it started burning.
Exactly.
The smoke alarms are going
Spot
off. The
on.
dogs are chasing their tail. And I don't know what the hell's going on. Let's talk about this, man. I asked you last week your thoughts on Oklahoma City Thunder. Okay, people, everyone from Seattle. What do you guys call in Seattle? What do you guys call yourselves? You guys call yourselves Washingtonites? What do you guys?
I think the term is Washingtonians. It's a little. We were talking about this in the newsroom the other day. Sade was talking to me and Anna, one of our other new reporters.
Yeah.
Like, and Anna, we're like, yeah, we're Washingtonians. And Sade's like, what? And I'm like, wouldn't you say Californian? She's like, oh, I guess. But yeah, Washingtonian. So maybe just call me Tony. I don't know. Is that how you abbreviate it? Us Tonys. No. But yeah. You were saying Oklahoma City.
Yeah, the Supersonics leave, become the Oklahoma City Thunder. But now there's more so than whispers, probably rumors, that Seattle and Las Vegas, as early as 2024, can be the two new expansion NBA teams. Sounds like the one and only LeBron James wants to own the Vegas team. I'm not sure what's kind of in that for him. I know, obviously, they gained the Las Vegas Knights in hockey in 2018. They gained the Raiders in 2020. UFC built T-Mobile Center down there in Vegas back in like 14-15 range to hold the UFC events there. They always pack it out. So they have the resources. They have the stuff. I don't think an NBA team's going to play in the Raiders Stadium, but maybe T-Mobile Center.
Yeah.
And in Seattle, I mean, you guys have stuff set up, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I think you guys still have a big enough area to build a new arena if you haven't already. I know Bezos is working on something, right? Isn't Bezos building an arena?
Maybe. I know that we've got the new look that up. I know we've got the hockey arena, climate pledge for the Kraken, and I don't know if it's quite NBA, ready yet, but I think that was kind of their long-term goal, was to make that a place that an NBA team could play. And it's been this weird circus of, investors saying, "Hey, we're going to do this," and then fighting the city for the property and all the things that you need to do, getting road access and all the headaches that a major sports venue would create. So it's been kind of this off and on, playing cat and mouse with the city and the fans. So I don't know what the latest is. I don't know about Bezos. You have to look that up. Yeah.
So Amazon bought the naming rights to Key Arena.
Okay, right.
Which was, the old arena where the Sonics would play, and now it's called Climate Pledge Arena.
Yeah. Yeah. Climate Pledge. I mean, that's a sexy name, isn't it?
Better than Lemon Pledge.
There you go.
I'll give them that. So the arena, home to the city's incoming NHL franchise, like you mentioned, and the WNBA Seattle Storm, will be 100% powered by renewable electricity when it opens by late summer 2021. Oh, that's already open?
Yeah, they've been playing there since the fall. So they've had a
Oh.
couple. Yeah, so the Kraken season was there, and I know the Storm just finished up their season the past couple weeks here. But I've never been yet. I know it opened up, and I had some friends that work for the Kraken and said it's a beautiful, amazing venue.
Oh, dude, I did not know this.
Yeah, now you got another reason to go to Seattle.
Wait a minute. Wait a damn minute. Is that that's the arena?
That is not. No, that's.
That's not it, right?
I think that's the Atlanta.
Climate Pledge Green. That's what I thought.
That's the arena there, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool looking, but it's not quite that.
Oh, they
amazing.
were showing Mercedes-Benz.
Okay.
That looks like the Falcon Stadium.
Yeah, that stadium is amazing.
So this is right downtown, Space Needle. You got the skyline backdrop. The way they build cities, 'cause I've been getting into geography a lot this year and stuff. The way they kind of go about building these cities and where they do it. I'll be totally honest with you, dude. There's been a couple things you've said that surprised me. I'm not a Neil deGrasse Tyson fan.
Okay.
At all.
Yeah. No,
I think he's a
that.
fear mongerer. I never hear anything good come out of that guy's mouth.
I think you're right. No, I
So,
totally see that.
and he was saying something, I never really realized it. He was like, think about it this way. He was like, because he was talking about, the ocean levels, Antarctica, the ice cap melting and drowning our cities, fear mongering. And he was like, think about all the best cities in the world. They're all based right on water.
Yeah.
Tokyo, San Francisco, New York, Miami. I'm sure I'm missing some, in other
But
parts of the
you got
world.
the major ones, yeah.
Rio de Janeiro.
Right.
London, all these places, Paris. So he's not wrong. And Seattle, this is a beautiful city, man. I feel like Seattle's definitely up there as far as a big touristy spot. Is there a lot of tourism that comes through Seattle, like millions of people a year kind of thing?
I'm sure that we're up there for sure. And I think the thing about Seattle is it's kind of a global city. We're on the West Coast, so it's a destination for folks from, all over Asia. So we get a lot of tourists internationally. And I think maybe it's kind of more of a hidden gem within the U.S. I think that the West Coast in general is just underrated. I can say that. Obviously, I'm biased. I'm sure, growing up on the West Coast, you feel the same way. Yeah, we're always underrated.
Hip-hop's
All
better,
the media's out there on the
sports
East
is better.
Coast. Yeah, exactly.
I think our media is better. We got the Bay and LA.
There we go.
500 miles apart.
Exactly.
So say what you want about that, but I think that's kind of cool.
So I think, it's more of a globally recognized tourist destination, but hopefully people kind of realize that it's a hidden gem because it's pretty cool. I mean, this will tell you everything. California's an amazing place, and a lot of people move from California up to Seattle, at least for a couple years. So that right there is some testimony in itself that you come from the Golden State up to the rainy up there because everything else is so good.
And then some people come from Seattle to
exactly
the hottest
right
part
here.
of the entire
That's
state.
me. That's me.
Hey, let's go to the hottest part in California.
Yeah, get used to it.
We'll call it a year.
Boom.
Let's talk about this. I want to ask you about this actually. If I'm not mistaken, University of Washington Dogs. Is that what
Dogs? Yeah.
Okay, I love it. Your guys' arch rival is Washington State University,
Yes.
much like Oregon State and Oregon, Cal, Berkeley, Stanford.
Right.
So there's an offensive tackle that I literally used to play football with.
Oh, really?
That plays at Washington State. His name is Jarrett Kingston.
Okay.
He's a tackle. I think he's a right tackle.
Gotcha.
And I remember one time that I don't really care if he minds me telling the story or not. The only story I have about this kid was we were in practice one time. I want to say freshman year of high school. And he was on the offensive line, I was on the defensive line. And he's already accomplished. He's obviously good enough to go on and play in better places. And I'm trying to get a spot on the team. So remember, I chop blocked him because I didn't want his ass blocking me. And I was trying to, it was a run-heavy kind of game, run-heavy practice. And I was like, I know they're going to run the ball. I feel like if I get this guy flat, my linebacker can come through and crunch the hole, right?
Yeah.
So I do that. This is a big guy. This is a big kid. He lands right on top of me. My back still hurts to this day. And he's pissed at me. This guy's pissed. He's like, what the fuck you doing chop blocking me in practice? I'm like, I'm trying to have my homeboy get the ball. I'm like, we're trying to get to the ball, dude. And he's like, don't chop block me again. It's against the rules. And I'm like, against the rules? Like, start going off. I'm not going to make Jarrett out to be a diva. I think if he goes on to do great things, it's good for Anderson. Yeah. But I'm wondering if you have any idea who the hell I'm talking about right now.
I'll say I've never heard his name, but that's because I don't know Wazoo's roster that well. But they've got a good team out there. I will absolutely say that. And I'll never say that about Oregon. I hate the Ducks more than anything. Wazoo's our in-state rival. Oregon, there's no good, it's
no
all
love
bad
lost.
blood. Yeah, nothing. Those two schools hate each other more than pretty much any rivalry in the country, And obviously, we say that internally, but it's not Ohio State, Michigan, but it's up there. It's one of those things where it's just
I'll say they're
pure
pretty bad
hate.
too.
With Wazoo, it's kind of this like, hey, we don't like you one day a year, but when we're not playing each other, we root for each other because, there's some sort of brotherhood in the state of Washington. And so, generally, I'll root for them okay. I'm a little bitter over the past year. They whooped us. The Cougs destroyed
What was
us.
the score?
40-13.
Oh.
And they rushed the field at our stadium. It was embarrassing. Yeah.
Oh, that's not good.
It was bad. But you know what? They had it coming. We beat them 7 years in a row before that, so it was kind of this big moment for them. I think this is going to be a competitive rivalry again.
Yeah.
I think that's super cool that you said he's from Anderson.
Yeah.
That's awesome because I think that's one of the things about these Pac-12 programs is that they're looking for people in these communities that maybe are not the recruiting hotbeds, but there's still great talent coming out of places. And you have to do that to dig deep and be able to continue to compete. And a lot of the times, those star ratings are not super accurate.
No.
You can get a 4-star. I mean, I think there's a story of a guy that made up a fake recruiting profile, and he said he had an offer from Alabama, and all of a sudden these recruiting agencies were rating him as a 3-star, even though he wasn't even a real player. So it's just such a game.
That's wild.
Yeah, and so I think there's some really cool, impressive talent coming out of these communities that aren't, typically recruiting hotbeds. And so it's super cool to see the Pac-12 kind of recruiting in smaller communities here in the North State and elsewhere on the West Coast to continue to be competitive because you've got places like Alabama poaching out of California and, the big programs with big NIL money getting, deep into the West Coast. And so I love to see talent staying here on the West Coast, wherever that is, except for Oregon. But no,
That's funny.
Yeah.
So why the Oregon hate? I don't understand this. It's for the Ducks, right?
Yep.
And the Beavers are
Beavs
okay.
Beavs are fine.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's another kind of friendly
It's the
rivalry.
Ducks.
And with the Beavers, it's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So,
Right.
you know, the Ducks hate the Beavers. Hey, we'll team up and say, yeah, screw Eugene, whatever's going on down there, the green and yellow. It's just bad blood, and I can't even really explain it, but it's kind of been just a series of, you know, we were really good in the 90s, and then they kind of disrupted that one year, and that's kind of been their whole brand. I think, you know, on our side of things, we think Oregon's really obnoxious with the, you know, million uniform combos and all the Phil Knight money and
the
all
Nike
that.
stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
hey, sometimes it's cool. I think some of it's pretty tacky. They go a little over the
Some of it's kind of
a
tacky.
little
But
tacky.
some of it is pretty cool.
Yeah. I'll give them that. And then, you know, I think it's just personal, and there's kind of this hate, and I don't know where it really started, but you know, you look at the iconic games in that series. We've had a couple really close games in recent years. Even last year when we were pitiful, we hung in there with them. And you know, the 2 years before that, just barely lost to them. And then you look at the one time, I don't know if you're familiar with Chris Peterson at all, but
No.
so he was the coach at Boise State, built an amazing legacy there, came to UW, and then he retired, you know, kind of unexpectedly a couple years ago. But his first year, I think it was our second time that he was coaching down in Oregon, and we were finally kind of breaking through. That's the only time I've ever seen him run up the score. You know, he was kind of an old school ball coach, and you know, if the game's put away, he's not going to go crazy. But against Oregon for once, and the score will forever, you know, sit in our memories. This golden moment on the purple side of things, 70-21, and you know, hanging
Nice.
70 on the Ducks in Eugene, and so that just goes to show the hate that this coach that would never ever do that just did it. And so I think the hate's mutual, and there's probably good reasons on both sides, but there's no like, I get along with you. There's no, like with Wazoo, there's always that, okay, yeah, there's some brotherhood here, but Oregon, it's nasty.
I like that though.
It's fun.
I like that,
It's
man.
good old fashioned.
I like when lines in the sand are drawn.
Yes.
At times. I really do.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of like, you know, I'm sure everyone's come across certain people in life before, even certain friends and stuff, where it's like, is this person really my friend still? Or we just kind of live it up the nostalgia of high school
Right.
or middle school. You know, it's like, this person's kind of screwing me over right about now. I don't think this person's very good for me. Washington Huskies at Washington State Cougars, November 26th. Day
Yeah.
after Black Friday.
Yeah.
2 days after Thanksgiving.
Yep.
So yeah, that'll be one of the last games of the season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
The bowl
usually,
games are in December.
usually we play on Friday. It's weird that it's a Saturday this year. It's usually Black Friday that game, and it's always fun. There's always some good memories. Well,
It
maybe
might-
not last year wasn't fun.
It might be Black Friday. Is it Black
Yeah,
Friday?
it is. You know, you're right. It's Saturday this year. I don't know why they changed it.
It
but
is a Saturday.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
funny
Saturday.
stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I'm actually tuning into that.
Oh
just to-
yeah,
just to
no, it's a
kinda-
great culture clash rivalry because whereas like a lot of rivalries, you know, you look at UCLA, USC, you look at Stanford, Cal, they might, you know, be on opposite sides of things, but the people are very much the same. Whereas you look at, you know, they probably do the exact same things. They go to the same jobs and you know live in the same places.
Right.
Washington State is such a culture clash because you've got, you know, this metropolitan area in Seattle, Western Washington, you know, all the stereotypes of the grunge and all that. And then you go to Eastern Washington and it's, you know, farming, rural, you know, community, and there's nothing else to Pullman but that college campus. And so it's just a college town. And so it's very different. And, you know, there's respect there between those two schools, and it's a fun, you know, lighthearted rivalry. But I think you look at some of the great rivalries in all of college sports and probably across the NFL too. There's not that difference between the two teams, and it's kind of fun to have that as like, hey, we really are two different teams, and then we can come together and hate on whoever else in the Pac-12 if we need to. You know, there's some mutual connection there. But I'm curious, you're saying you like when those lines in the sand are drawn?
Yes.
What's your favorite iconic, just hateful, spiteful rivalry?
So I'm not a huge college football guy.
Okay, any sport.
I guess biggest rivalry. You know, you know, I think it's underrated was like those old Ravens Steeler games.
Oh yeah.
From like 2011 to like 14
Yeah.
range when they like literally kill each other on the field, like Ray Lewis, Terrell Suggs, you know,
Yes.
all these guys. Yeah, Flacco was the quarterback, but also like
Right.
James Harrison, you know, they call him Palamalu. You know, I mean, everyone was there. Everyone,
Right.
you know, Big Ben still wasn't, you know, one arm Big Ben, noodle arm Big Ben. So, you know, those are probably really good. I love Chargers Raiders.
Okay, yeah.
And
You guys got the
especially
win.
we did
Start
get
the
win.
season off on a good note there. Yeah.
I love it because, man, the Raider fans don't have anything to talk about from the time they were alive till present day. They don't got nothing to say.
No.
And it kind of drives me a little nuts. And not like the Chargers do either, right?
Right.
But like they've definitely been worse
Oh yeah.
over the last 20, 25 years. I mean, it's like we haven't moved. Well, we did move cities, but I think we kind of think our upgrade is maybe a little more than Vegas. I'll be totally honest with you.
Yeah.
I still feel I feel like LA can become a football town, more so Rams and Chargers, whereas Vegas, I don't know, Vegas is just Vegas.
Yeah.
Vegas will always be Vegas with or without the Raiders. And that
This
sounds
is true.
very harsh. I know they pack it out. I know they have tons of fans. And I'll go one step further, Preston, and then we'll have one more thing before you out of here because we do have Chargers Chiefs.
Oh yeah,
tonight.
you got to get out there, dude.
And
Man,
I
you're starting
don't
with
want to
two
roast
AFC
this, but
West games out of the states.
I know.
That's wild. I didn't notice
yeah, I'm excited for it. I used to be a Oakland Raiders fan.
that. Okay.
At a
Dang.
certain point. So my uncle, rest in peace, was a Raider fan for a very long time, his whole life. L.A., Oakland. They could have been in fucking Seattle. They could have been Seattle Raiders. He probably would have cheered for them. So he passes 2013, year I'm going into high school. And, again, Phillip Rivers hate. I'm like, oh, I can't stand this guy, Phillip Rivers, whatever. And I'm kind of, become disinterested just in football in general. I didn't play fantasy, and if my
Okay.
team sucks, it's like I'm not into it. And then I just kind of hopped on the Raiders thing, man. I like Derek Carr. I like Khalil Mack. I think
Yeah.
that was, 2014. They got both those guys in the same draft. And honestly, I was just like, I think I like this team. I think I like the colors and just all these excuses. Chargers move. I love San Diego. It's like a second home. That also kind of
Okay.
pissed me off a little bit because it's like they're literally just leaving San Diego behind for LA the same way the Clippers did
Right.
back in the
Oh my
80s.
gosh.
So now they just have the Padres down there, and guys like Fernando Tatis are getting popped for PED still. They had a chance to win the World Series this year. That's a different pop into the day. Long story less long, man. I literally was a fan for a few years because just the betrayal, that the Chargers did to the city of San
Right.
Diego. Then the Raiders turn around and do it to Oakland.
It's crazy.
So,
all the relocation.
You got to stand on your morals, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, so morally, where am I at? Who am I really going to... There was a time I had an Aaron Rodgers jersey.
Oh dang.
Chico native.
Okay, there you go.
He's
Yeah.
a Chicoan, as they call
Chicoan.
him. He's a native Chicoan. So I was like, you know what, dude, this guy's Super Bowl winner at the time. He had won 2 MVPs. This is going into 2020.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, go Packers. Eventually, it's like Herbert's a star. Keenan Allen's cool as hell. Austin Eckler is amazing. Derwin James is great. Obviously this last offseason was really good for us. But I was like, I love my Chargers. My dad's a Charger fan. He lives in Ohio.
Okay.
He's from San Diego, born and raised. He got over it. It's Herbert era. You know what I mean? Like, it's not Norv Turner anymore where it's like, what are we doing?
Right.
Going 14-2, then losing in the divisional round to the Jets.
Oh,
It's like, I
man.
just don't understand it. So let's go Chargers, man. So I think my favorite would be Chargers Raiders because me personally, I see both sides of the token. I see the angry, pissed off Raider fans
Yeah.
not accomplishing anything over the last 20 years. Then I also see where they're like, what have you Charger fans done? What have the Chargers done in 20 years? And they're not wrong. But it's also like, dude, you guys had Jamarcus Russell. And then you let guys like Nnamdi Asomugha go in free agency, who was like one of the best corners in football.
Right.
Guys like Darren McFadden go to the Cowboys and look better for a couple of years afterwards. Just stuff like that. It's just,
Yeah.
Khalil Mack in Chicago. It's like such boneheaded stuff. You bring back Chucky, and we see how that ends. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's just kind of funny to kind of pick on them
Yeah.
and whatnot. I have one more thing for you, man.
Yeah.
I want to finish up with this. I want to kind of get a glimpse into what you're looking forward to for the rest of 2022. And I'm not sure how long your deal is to be at KRCR. I'm going to assume maybe a few years. What do you look forward to being at KRCR for the foreseeable future and kind of just what the rest of this year looks like?
So the rest of the year, I still feel like it's a learning process for me. Not coming from any real journalism background, I'm excited to get better at telling these stories. I think right now it's kind of rough, and I've had a lot of help in making sure that product looks polished enough, but getting more comfortable with the process and being like, okay, I got my interviews done early in the day. I can spend time editing. I can write these stories, and it's not this like running on the highest level all day long. So I really do think that I still got a ways to go and learn, and there's some really great people that have helped me already, and they know what they're doing. They've been here for a couple of years, and so continuing to learn from them is definitely my thing. And then on the weather side of things, getting more familiar with the area, because right now I'm kind of reliant on the forecast models, but getting more familiar with this area and knowing myself inherently, okay, yeah, the models are saying it's going to be just as warm in Chico as in Redding, but I know that's not the case. Or maybe sometimes it is, but just getting familiar with that and being able to have some personal spin on it and really give people the best forecast. That's my goal, and that's going to continue for years. Is just learning, because weather's one of those things you can never master it. One of my professors just said the other day, he's like, I could do this for my entire life. I could spend all my time studying weather, and at the end of the day, I would know maybe 25-50% of it. And so it's one of those things where it's like,
Wow.
You just want to be as good, you just want to be better than the other guys at it. And so that's my goal, is always to, bring the most accurate forecast, and that's something I want to continue to learn. So 2022 is just continuing to learn. And beyond that, I really want to, throughout my contract at KRCR, I think my passion lies in weather, and I always love sports, and I know that we don't do a ton of sports coverage at KRCR. Love to do that, love to blend those two things if possible. Don't know how that would happen, but I'll keep the wheels spinning there. But yeah, I really want to be able to tell important weather stories, and I think we do a lot of great fire coverage. We do a lot of coverage on the drought, but being able to kind of serve as a community educator in the weather side of things, because a lot of people just maybe don't think about it as much, but I think it's really interesting. And you look at climatology and how recent years compare to past years, and all of that can be really fascinating and can help people understand these other things that are going on, these very weather-related behavior. When's our fire season starting and ending in a year, that sort of thing. And so continuing to make weather something people are passionate about through my stories, and being able to tell the stories of people that live here, have lived there their whole lives, and give them a voice, because that can be a challenge. And in places, we have a lot of rural communities around here, obviously some big cities in Reading and Chico, but rural communities being out there and saying, hey, we care, let's give you a voice. I think that's something that I'm passionate about, because I've gotten to, even just in a few months, see these people and get familiar with these communities even a little bit, and be like, hey, these are real places. They're not just numbers on a map that I'm pointing to. There's a lot of people out here, and just let's make it happen. So that's one of my goals, is really to just kind of continue to embrace the North State, because they've embraced me for the first few months, and I can't wait to continue to see how this all goes.
I was gonna say, dude, I know you were a huge hit in the control room.
Thank you.
Everyone loved having you there. Everyone loved having just your energy and just your birthday happening. It's just like, what are the odds of that?
Right.
I know Nazi liked having you around and whatnot. So honestly, dude, I want to thank you for coming on here. I really appreciate it. I know that it's probably a little daunting coming somewhere new, and people. Yeah, at the time, some random guy asking for a podcast. I mean, I get that. Honestly,
No.
I gave Mason the same treatment last year. She was brand new.
Okay.
I asked her like a month into when she was on the news, and I didn't hear back till I got the job at KRCR. And that's just how the cookie crumbles. You know what I mean? Like,
Gotcha.
there's just, and now being in the business, seeing that they have so many things to do in a certain day's time, it's like, why would I go do something I'm not really sure of in my off time, So, anyway, I just want to say thank you for coming on. I had a blast. I think
I did too.
No,
this was super fun. I'm
and
super glad we did
people at
it.
the station think you're a star, man.
Thank
They really
you.
do. They think you're good at what you do, and you have good stuff. So,
Thanks.
I want to ask you afterwards about your takes about KRCR.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I do have a couple of questions for
Yeah.
you, but thanks for coming on, dude.
Thank
I
you so
appreciate it.
much.
If you guys made it this far, thank you for listening. I'll be back in just a few days' time, and I will see you guys later. Have a good day.